Hello everybody, my name's Hazel. Welcome back to my channel all about ice cream. Today, as you might be able to guess from the chili that is in the middle of the screen, is chili chocolate ice cream. It's being made to fit the theme of hot and cold. I figured cold is pretty much a given that it's ice cream. Let's add some heat by the chili. I'm actually going to start with the chili. Now, please don't judge my chopping skills. I'm a baker, not a cook. So I'm starting with the chili just because I want to have it there ready to add at the end. And all I want to do is just put it into little pieces. The chili in this recipe did not need to be reformulated for, because it's going in there to infuse and then it's going to come back out again. Wow, I like hot food, and even I can tell this is smelling hot already. There's a myth about chilies, by the way, that the seeds are where the heat is. That's not true. It's actually in the little white bits around it. So I think there's more. You can just about see it there, what's called the rib of the chili. That's where the heat is from. These chilies are Scotch bonnets, I think. Yes, they are. I wanted habanero chilies. I usually grow chilies every year, but I was away this year at the time they needed to be planted. So I'm having to rely on chilies that I can buy for the moment, and I couldn't find habaneros. I wanted habaneros though, because they were a chili that was actually being used. So chilies are a New World ingredient. Columbus gets a lot of credit for them, but it wasn't actually him. He found what we would know more likely as a bell pepper. Chilies are, I think, Cortez is the one who's largely responsible for bringing them to Europe and then around the world from there. And chilies have become a very ubiquitous ingredient. So Thai chilies are otherwise known as bird's eye chilies. Not native to Thailand, but grown there, used in their food. And now it's more strongly associated with Thailand than their origin. But I would have liked to have had an original Mesoamerican chili to use on this ice cream, but I couldn't find one. So Scotch bonnet it is, which is more associated with Caribbean food. Now the thing with chili is you really do not want to go touching a mucosal layer after handling it. So let me just, the ball didn't get too much on it. Let me just go and give my hands a wash, a lot, and then I will remove the board and get on with making the rest of the ice cream. And I'm back from the 10-minute hand washing. You may notice I've actually added some cups to the lineup as well. They'll come in handy in a moment. But for now, I'm just going to start off with weighing out the creams. I don't need to talk too much about the creams, but this recipe ends up a heavy percentage of single cream, because there are, as you'll see, a lot of ingredients being added that are going to include fat. You need to take fat away from somewhere else. You can't have entirety of fat as you would a usual. This recipe is not my usual custard recipe. This one is very heavily modified. So you actually end up using, I managed to forget to get my little spoons out. There we go. Try not to knock the camera too much. You actually end up using 50% of the entire recipe of this is single cream. So I am making, for mathematical reasons, 750 grams. So I need 375 grams of single cream on this one. I'll also just take this moment to say I really hope the audio and visual quality of this is going to be okay. I have been filming on my phone, but a few days ago, in fact about a week ago now, the charging port on my phone stopped working, and every ability to add a microphone to a phone uses that charging port. I did look into whether I needed to get a new phone, but it was much easier and cheaper to buy a wireless charger. And then it suddenly occurred to me that would mean that I don't have the ability to put a microphone into the phone anymore. Luckily though, I was a photographer for a few years, about a decade. And circumstances kind of conspired against me a little bit. I no longer do much photography, but I do still have all of the equipment for it. So this is actually being filmed on my proper camera. What have we got? We've got nigh on 250 grams there. But it's the first time I've ever really done film on a camera. I was very much a still photographer. I wasn't doing video. I did buy a microphone for it. I have experimented with it. I think the settings are right, but I do apologise if it's not. There may be a little bit of a learning curve with this. So as I show you how to make ice cream, I am also learning how to use the camera as a video. It was 375 grams I need to do this. Let's not go wild. I also had a horrible minute where I worried I'd picked up my whipping cream instead of my second pot of single, but no, we're good. Single cream. 375 and 365 at the minute. Yeah, that's near enough. 376. That won't make a difference. And then for the whipping cream, actually very, very little of it. Only 10% of the recipe on this one is whipping cream. So 75 grams of this. Which is going to leave me quite a lot of whipping cream to find a use for. I did say last time that I might get a bonus panna cotta video in here somewhere. Is that going to be enough? I can probably work it out. So I've got a 250 milliliter pot, more or less the same as the 250 gram. If I've only taken 75, that's going to leave me 175 grams of it left. I'm just going to pour this very, very carefully, because once I've added this one, I can't take it away. 50, 60, 70, 5, just do a tiny bit more because I know I went over on the single cream. Right, let me just put my remainder of my creams back in the fridge. Let's find room in the fridge. And then move on to the next ingredient. So the next ingredient I think will surprise people because it's 10% of water. So again, another, did I just turn that off? No, I did zero it. So another 75 grams just in plain water. The reason for this is the original recipe used syrup, which is 1-to-1 ratio of sugar and water. Now, I'm pouring most of that over my hob. Never mind. I've used all my jugs for other things, so I'm having to just pour it as best as I can from a bottle. What's that? Went slightly over. That went to about 6 grams. Mildly annoying. Not going to be the end of the world. Actually, is that an 8 or is that a 6? I'm pretty sure that's an 8. Where was I? Yes, the original recipe used syrup. So 1-to-1 ratio of sugar and water. Reason being, there is a very low amount of water in this recipe if you don't use syrup. If you just use pure sugar, you end up with an ice cream mixture which is very low in sugar, low in water, and you then get a very crumbly texture to the ice cream. This is one of the problems people have with chocolate ice cream. People are very scared of using chocolate in ice cream. Let me just zero that down and add my sugar in a moment. But if you formulate for it, if you take into account that you naturally have a low level of water and increase that, there's no problems. So I actually end up using slightly more sugar. So I'm going to need 15% of sugar in this one. So that's going to be 112.5 grams. Because the way I make these recipes is I do them more or less faithfully to begin with. Weigh up everything that I used, because of course the original recipes are late 1700s, early 1800s. They're all using imperial measurements. So I weigh up what I used, all of it in grams, work out the percentages of it, and then formulate as necessary. But these days, I used to go for very, very specific measurements, like 100 and... Why would I go for 100% of anything? 52.7% of something. But I got fed up of doing that. And if you're showing people how to make ice cream, that is fiddly. So these days I round it. By the time I rounded this, 113, that's okay. by the time I rounded this, I ended up with a missing 5% in the recipe formulation. Now, my recipes are historically inspired. They are not historically faithful recreations. And we know now that if you put a little bit more sugar in, you end up controlling the water, you end up controlling the softness of it a lot better. So I put that extra 5% into my sugar. So let us 0 that one down. And then what to move on to next? Let's actually add the chocolate. I want the eggs last. So chocolate is scary to people. People don't like making chocolate ice cream. They think it's all going to go wrong. This recipe does not go wrong because it formulates it. Chocolate has a long history, which I will not be going into the entirety of it. Obviously, very, very old world ingredient. Was originally brought over to Europe as a drink, and it remained a drink for centuries. You don't see chocolate being eaten until the 1800s. The way in which the original recipes would have gone chocolate would be something much more akin to using cocoa nibs, grinding them down to release the chocolate liquor. However, that's a lot of effort. I've known people burn out their grinders doing that. If you get a bar of chocolate which has been very minimally modified, so no ingredients added to it really apart from the chocolate, the cocoa, and maybe a little bit of sugar, you have something that is more or less the same as if you ground down and got the cocoa liquor yourself. And that's exactly what I have. So this is actually 100% cocoa. So there is no sugar in this. It is all cocoa mass and cocoa butter. I'm using this one specifically now. I need not much of chocolate, actually, only 5% chocolate. That ends up not chocolatey enough for some people. I find it's about the right amount for me, but if I make this for my mother, I have a recipe that uses a little bit more chocolate. But 5%, so I want 37.5 grams of chocolate. And put it in relatively small bits just to aid the melting process. I can't break that up. So I'm using this particular chocolate because it is the closest one to the chocolate I originally used when I originally formulated this recipe. However, I'm going through chocolate a little bit at the minute. Chocolate is never going to be something that I can get close to me. It only grows within 20 degrees north and south of the equator. So I'm never going to get a UK grown chocolate. But what I can do is try and get something that is very close to the farmers and get it from chocolate makers who are concerned on the ethics of their supply chain. And I've identified a few. What am I up to? Is that 17, I think? Yeah, that's now 18. I've identified a few, and I'm planning to experiment with them all. I've got 6 at the moment. There may be more added to that. But I just need time to do that. It will take me a while to make that many ice creams. I'm probably going to do it over the Christmas holidays, just because I will get a few days in a row to do it. If I could do it over my weekend, but it would take my entire weekend. And it's quite nice to have a chocolate bonanza at Christmas. I also might need to reformulate some of the recipes. Just chocolate, you think of chocolate as a single product. There are all sorts of ways in which you can make chocolate differently. So I had, like I said, this is a 100%. I've got another 100%, which actually has slightly different nutritional values to it. This one was just the closest one. So I thought for ease of doing this, let's use one that's already similar to what I had. But look forward to the chocolate bonanza, where we'll see which one actually works out best. Is that 37? I don't want too much more then. It's going to be hard to get a piece that small. 37 point. Okay, maybe it's not that hard to get a piece that small. That only took it to 1.8. That increased it. Why was that one so much more dense? That's now taken it to 39. Yes, I think it's 39. Yes, it is 39. Oh well. It'll be slightly more chocolatey. My mother would like it. Now, the things that I move the cups over here for, the mugs, are eggs. Eggs. We all know what eggs are. This, I think, yes, this is the first time I'm using eggs to make one of these recipes. There are, I think I alluded to this in, it might have been the sheep milk video. There are two reasons to add eggs to an ice cream. Some people do it because they have lecithin in it. So lecithin is an emulsifier. It helps keeps fats and waters combined. Can be quite useful in ice cream, particularly in very fatty ice creams. Eggs actually have quite a lot of lecithin. Eggs have an egg yolk is about 10% lecithin. Whilst I'm talking, I'm just going to start cracking them. And this is why I have my cups, by the way. I save the whites. So in addition to panna cotta, which I make out of my leftover cream, I also make macaroons out of my leftover egg whites. I try to save it in 3 whites at a time, but for reasons that will become obvious in a minute, that's going to be tricky with this recipe. How far had I got to? Egg yolks. Egg yolks have 10% of lecithin, so about 1.5 grams in a medium-sized yolk, which is what these are. It means in this recipe, because we are using 10% of the recipe in egg yolk, I would end up with, let's get that in there, about a percentage of the entire recipe being lecithin, which is on the higher end of what people will sometimes add. So you can add lecithin in all sorts of different ways. Maybe I should have talked first and then divided. I'm not very good at multitasking. The rumours about women being able to do that are false. Trying to get the ganju off. There we go. So yeah, 1% of lecithin is on the higher end. In my normal custard recipe, though, I end up with more like 1.5%. If you are using egg yolks to add lecithin, you're wasting your money. Buy a pot of lecithin and add it like that. You can formulate it much more precisely. The main reason you should be using egg yolks is if you want an eggy custard taste to your ice cream. Now, I would never make an egg yolk based strawberry ice cream or any fruit ice cream. It's not the right flavour for it. It really suits the. I need the other eggshell. That one didn't split very well. It really suits the rich flavours, so chocolate, vanilla, works quite well on the nutty flavours, I've found. Also really good on the florals. That is where you add egg yolks. If you're only doing it to get the emulsification, use lecithin. Do it because you want the flavour of the yolk. Now, as I said, so this recipe particularly is 10% of egg yolk. An egg yolk, a medium egg yolk, is going to weigh about 15 grams. So in this recipe, if I use 5 eggs, I get the right amount there. And that's why it's annoying. That's why I don't get my 3 white amounts. But I was planning to make some scrambled eggs for lunch. And when I do scrambled eggs, I do 2 whole eggs plus an extra yolk. So that's where I'll get my yolk from. And I'll still save it in 2 batches of 3. Of course, very important to make sure you don't get any of the fat, any of the yolk in the whites if you want to use it for something like macarons. It's not actually that important if you get a little bit of white into the ice cream mixture. In fact, 2 out of the 3 books of recipes I use, no, other way. 1 out of the 3 books of recipes that I use, that one's had its 3 yolks. Doesn't actually even say to separate the white and yolk. Generally, though, you're going to get a much nicer flavour if you do separate it. This is yolk number 4. You can, of course, buy all sorts of things to help you separate egg yolks. I do it the old-fashioned way, passing it between the shells. I've just realised I've been doing that off of screen this entire time. Let me see if I can move something. I'll do this one because it's going to be awkward to try and move all the camera in the middle of separating an egg yolk. And then if I just give my hand a wipe, get a bit of the white off of it. I'll just move the camera up a little bit. Hopefully that should then mean you see the actual egg separation process. you would if I try and get my arm over. Actually, I might just do it off to the side. That might be easier. I don't know if that means I'm now in the screen. Probably not, looking at those angles. Just trying to get rid of the particularly, what my father refers to as the snotty bit. I remember I was watching something once, and I can't remember what it was, but it suggested that children don't like eating the egg yolks, they like eating egg whites. That doesn't really seem to match with anyone that I've ever met. People that are fussy egg eaters, I'm one of them, will generally happily eat the yolk. I'll only eat the white if it's been beaten into something. So scrambled egg is fine, but a fried egg, absolutely wasted on me. That's probably about right. There we are. There's our five yolks in there. I'll also probably make some people very upset because no, I'm not going to temper them. You don't need to temper everything. This recipe works absolutely fine if you just bring it all up to heat as one. Go back to a bit more focus on the hob. Oh, got the chilli. Got the prize ingredient. Just put that in there. Now, I didn't know how much chilli to use. A whole Scotch bonnet will seem high. It is high. But the cream will help temper that quite a lot. And it's not like I can't make this again. If I think it wasn't hot enough, I can always add an extra chilli in the future. If it's too hot, oh well, some people can have fun eating a hot custard. Now, I did have a big spoon out here earlier, I'm sure I did. And we need to find a big spoon in a minute. But for now, just start whisking it. So it's a bit like Friends and cappuccino with a K. Constantly whisk it, never let it settle. In the process of doing so, your chocolate is going to melt, your yolks are going to get broken up, and they are going to combine to form a custard. The reason I need a spoon is I don't sit there weighing any of this. You can do. You could just get a thermometer and weigh it. Measure it is the word I meant to use. You can just get a thermometer and measure the temperature of it. I tend to do it the slightly more old-fashioned way. You wait until you have a custard that will coat the back of your spoon and allow you to draw a line in it, which is why I need a spoon. I could have sworn I got one of those out. I was thinking about it earlier. Never mind. Just might get a little wobble on the camera as I find a spoon. Yeah, that'll do. I'll just turn on my extractor, otherwise the steam's going to start condensing in my kitchen. I can see there the colour of it's starting to change, so my chocolate is starting to melt now. You will end up with little flecks of chocolate here, so the cocoa butter in it, the fat portion, will melt. Cocoa mass doesn't. It's why if you use chocolate nibs in recipes, some people I know put them into cookies, etc. They stay crunchy, they don't go melted and gooey. I feel as I'm whisking it, that is still staying in there. I can still feel the actual solid pieces of chocolate. This may froth a bit as you're whisking it, don't worry. It defroths itself. It doesn't froth as much as some do. If you make something that's very high in acid, so if you're making, say, a lemon ice cream, that will froth a lot. I've got an ice cream planned probably over the festive season that I suspect will do that as well. That is going to be much more brown colour. I'm still getting natural bits. It's awkward because usually I would feel the custard, but obviously I am going to feel the chilli. So I'll just bring it up every now and then and see if I'm still actually seeing any bits of chocolate. I don't think there's much left, if there is any. Now, this recipe is one that you will definitely be cooling down, both to let the flavour develop and to just let the mixture itself cool. If you do it properly, and bear in mind you don't need to go crazy with stirring this. In fact, I'm going to test it out now and see if I've already got a custard-like texture out the camera. Do that again. I'm going to do it for a little bit longer. Probably not loads off of that though. Oh, the chili comes through. I wasn't going to strain this before, but I'm someone that likes hot food, and I can feel that. I think, sorry for knocking the camera there, I think I'm straining this before it goes in to the pot. Just trying to get my sieve out. Because otherwise, I think if that chili flavour develops much more, that's going to be practically inedible to a lot of people. Chili and chocolate is a very old combination. Incidentally, the Aztecs were using it when they were making their chocolate drink. What they didn't have was sugar. So, sugar, there we go, we've got a custard. Sugar wasn't being combined with chocolate until it was in Europe. Right, move my pot over here. Is my pot in camera? It was until I called it on my hand. Now it is again. Oh, that is hot. Oh, that's nice. Let's sieve this out, and hopefully I will show you that I don't find my recipe's custard. There you go, it's got cocoa mass. There's no scrambled egg in there. And even if it does, it is not the end of the world. Because you can always strain out any little lumps in there. I'm just trying to get as much through as possible. I do want it to develop its chocolate taste overnight. I say overnight, it doesn't necessarily need overnight, just because of when I make ice cream. Overnight is usually convenient. But a lot of them they'll cool in less than 24 hours. And a lot of flavours don't need that long to develop. If you get impatient and you want to start churning it quicker than that, that's fine, do it. I think it was one of Ben and Jerry that said it is really hard to make truly bad ice cream. You might have ice creams you prefer, but it's hard to make one that just doesn't work at all. There we go. My chili is out. You can see a few little seeds in there, which might trick you into thinking that scrambled, but there is no scrambled egg in there. You don't need to temper. I do, however, need to wipe down that jug before I put it into my fridge. Otherwise I'm going to end up with a chocolate custard all over my shelves. And let's use, for irony's sake, the blue lid, the cool colour for a very hot ice cream. Refrigerate that, and I will see you back here when it's time to, well, I'm going to re-whisk it first, just to make sure everything combines again, but I probably won't bother showing you that part of this process, so I shall see you back here when it's time to churn the ice cream. It's very nearly time to churn the ice cream. You might just about hear me whisking it in the background. This mixture, let me just put it into the camera there. It doesn't really separate with this mixture, so I am just whisking it by hand just to gently recombine it. And because it ended up being strained before I put it into the fridge to chill, it doesn't need to be strained again, so it can just be poured straight from this jug into the machine that I actually did remember to pre-chill this time. I generally am better at remembering to pre-chill when I'm going to be re-whisking. That should be enough there. The heat seems to have died down from it slightly overnight. Oh no, there it comes. It seems to have delayed slightly overnight. So I've actually repositioned the ice cream machine slightly to make it a little bit easier for me to pour around a tripod. Doing the usual swirl to try and avoid as much as possible getting it onto the paddle. Now, in my experience of this chocolate ice cream recipe, it doesn't actually take that long to churn, especially if I've remembered to pre-chill. So I imagine 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and that should be ready. It's now time to unpot the chili chocolate ice cream. As predicted, that did take more or less exactly 20 minutes, about 22 minutes. There we go. That's become quite nice, thick ice cream there. It should scoop off and out quite easily. I did test this a minute ago just to see how it was progressing. I really thought the chili flavour, the heat, would have become a little bit more subtle. And then I was reminded that the flavouring compound is oil soluble. So whilst we think of dairy as quite good at cooling down chili heat, it will have been taken into this ice cream quite a lot. So I think it'll be fine for me, because I have quite a high tolerance for hot food. But I have friends that I would certainly never give this to. I had one where she and I were in an Indian restaurant, and they asked us how hot we wanted our dishes to be. And I said, of course, I'd like it to be as hot as it can be. She is very intolerant of heat and said she wanted it mild. And they got it the wrong way around. So whilst I'm sitting there eating my madras and thinking, there's no heat at all to this, she's opposite me dying over the hottest chicken tikka masala known to mankind. And she drank the entire jug of water and a pot of complimentary yogurt they brought out for her, and then blamed me for her having a tongue ulcer. Like I'm the one who said that I wanted to have a hot chicken tikka masala. I liked that restaurant. She did not. We weren't allowed to go back. It's become quite a sticky ice cream in this instance. I've never really had that happen before. It's coming out of the freezing bowl without too many problems. Just need to get a spoon to scoop that off. It's just not something I've seen this ice cream do before. I don't know whether that means it's going to freeze well or not. We shall see. That seems like quite a nice full amount for the tub. So I shall find some freezer space for that. And I really look forward to giving this one a try. I am excited but nervous for this one. I've got a little glass of milk just in case. Although part of the reason that milk helps with hot food is the capsaicin, which is fat soluble, gets caught up in the milk. I don't know how that works when it's already in fat. And I think I may have overdone it slightly based on what I was testing yesterday. But we shall see. Sometimes they will change. Well, there it comes. It goes away quite quickly again, though. So yeah, you do get the heat. There goes the heat. But it's already starting to wear away. I think that's really nice. I think it would have been nicer if I had made it with the I said habanero when I was making it, I think. What I meant was cayenne pepper. I think it would have been nicer with the cayenne pepper because they're not as hot as the Scotch bonnets that I ended up using. So I think one cayenne pepper would have been fine. I wouldn't have prepared with milk. But I will eat that. I think people I know will eat that. There are certain people I know that I would never give it to, but generally, I think that one's a pretty successful one. And the chocolate really does come through. You get more chocolate than you do heat, which is the intention. You don't really want to overpower things with heat. Heat and spice, just generally in food, are not the same thing. You can be a spicy food, you can have a spicy food, but not have it be very hot. Sometimes you get very hot foods which have no flavour to them at all apart from heat. I'm happy with that. If you don't want to make it as chocolate as chili chocolate, just don't put the chili in. The chocolate part of the recipe is the same no matter what you put in. The chili is added, the chili isn't formulated for. So pleased with that one. That one can go in the freezer for later. Sometimes if they're really awful, I just immediately melt them down. But that one will not be one of those. I think I know what's coming next week, but I haven't entirely decided, so it'll be a surprise for all of us. See you then.